Joining me today as we kick off another school year, I have Avald Friesen. He is with CAA Manitoba. He is the Manager of Government and Community Relations. Avald, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. What is CAA hearing as parents' greatest concern when it comes to the safety of school zones now that those are back in full effect?
Okay, so according to a recent study that we conducted, we of course track the issues that we see around school zones, and we like to report back around this time of year. So what we learned was from our respondents, primarily guardians and parents, was that 90% of us have witnessed unsafe driving behaviors around school zones. So this has included speeding, distracted driving, and also parking in a school bus area. So what the effect of this type of thing is that 62% of parents, therefore, have deemed school zones unsafe. So
I
this is
see.
a bit of an unsettling statistic. And so generally speaking, then, more parents, as a result of this perception of the safety of their school zones, are choosing, of course, to drive their children to school, which has the effect of further exacerbating the congestion issue.
Right. Yeah, there's just more traffic. Yeah, a whole lot going on, right?
Hmm.
Especially at one specific time in the morning. I would
Absolutely.
love to know what are some of CAA's tips when traveling in school zones to make them safer?
Okay, so there's a lot we can do. There's a lot we can do as motorists. There's a lot we can do as pedestrians to sort of help us reduce that congestion and just make sure that the priority is, of course, the safety of these kids. Let's be clear, back to school is a very exciting time for a lot of us, both parents and kids. Everybody wants to go see their friends or rush back to work. So there are a lot of very practical, very common sense things we can do. The first and foremost is we can put away our phones. Distracted driving, of course, is a leading cause of injury and fatality. It's particularly troublesome around school zones. So let's put away that phone and keep our eyes on the road and around the activity around our car. Another thing we can do is be mindful of school buses. So there seems to be some confusion. We've noticed this in our data over the years, that most of us know that when the red light comes or when the stop sign comes down and the red lights are flashing, that we are to stop behind the school bus. We can't pass it when we're approaching from behind. But this also applies when we're approaching it from in front. So there seems to be a bit of confusion. So if you see that school bus parked with its arm down and lights flashing, remember we got to stop, give it 5 meters, and the penalties for not doing it are pretty severe. Another
Can
thing
I
we
touch
can,
on that really quick?
yes,
Okay. So is the only exception if there's a full boulevard in between and you're coming from the front?
correct. If there's a
Okay.
boulevard that divides it, then you're free to go. However, if it's two-lane traffic with no boulevard divider, then you are to stop in front as well.
Perfect. Okay.
Um, Another thing we can do, and this sort of seems pretty intuitive, is we can slow down, respect the school zone speed limit. So generally speaking, what we've noticed over the years is that there's a bit of an adjustment period as school zone speed limits are now, of course, in effect. And so sometimes we don't really, adhere to that speed limit right away. It takes a little while getting used to it. So obviously, be mindful of that speed limit. They are now reduced, so we can adhere to that. Um, we can choose a safe drop-off spot. So this is a good one. We can choose a safe drop-off spot for our kids. This could be a family spot, maybe a block or two away. If indeed you need to drive your child to school because of distance or convenience or those types of things, find that spot, make it your family spot. Know that this is where you go to drop off and go to pick up. Uh, Another one is making eye contact with pedestrians. So you can do this negotiation, make sure that you see them, that they see you, and that you can safely move across the street or wherever it is. Um, the the problem of I want to talk about something else, which is quite interesting from our survey, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. There are, according to our survey, there's an interesting statistic, which is generally the appreciation or understanding that photo radar can serve as an effective deterrent in school zones. This flies in the face of some of the logic that we hear because obviously photo radar is a very controversial issue in Manitoba. But generally speaking, when we talk about photo radar around schools, there's a lot of appetite for this type of thing. We can obviously debate whether photo radar is the only answer. Clearly not. There are plenty of other things that we can do, municipal governments can do to sort of help slow us down around school zones. So this could include things like speed bumps and other traffic calming measures and speed limits and stuff like that. But photo radar, according to our survey, ended up being something that had generally quite a lot of support.
When it comes to photo radar, sorry for my ignorance, are you talking about the flashing lights of your speed? Or are you
So
talking about like ticketing?
Right. So photo radar would generally give you a ticket in the school zone if you were
Right.
speeding.
Yeah.
But you bring up a very good point. So the digital speed display boards are also quite effective. So
Yes.
that's another example of some of the ways in which we can kind of like add these extra layers of awareness of speed prior to that sort of enforcement piece, which photo radar does. And so there's plenty of things we can do to make our school zones a little safe. But of course, road safety is everyone's responsibility, whether you are a pedestrian, whether you are a motorist, whether you are a cyclist. Which is a perfect segue into some of the other things we can do to reduce congestion. In addition to the other tips I mentioned, we can also, I mean, the weather's still nice, a little chilly today, obviously. However, we can choose alternative forms of transportation. So whether this would include cycling or skateboarding or wheeling in some way, whether it's walking. And I know there are probably some parents out there who are saying, when I was a kid, I had to, etc. Yes, perhaps maybe this is something we could revisit. Perhaps not the miles and miles of distance that your story might tell us or the heaps of snow. However, walking to school is still an excellent way to get there. And of course, it does have the effect of reducing that congestion around school zone in this critical time.
Yeah. I think, you know, as a parent myself, teaching your children as well, even if the blinkers are going on the crosswalk, you know, that eye contact, like you were talking about, I think it's so important because sometimes drivers are distracted. So then if you know with that eye contact, yeah, it can just create a bit of a safer way to cross. I would love to
Uh,
know really quick last question. Any differences when it comes to rural Manitoba school zones comparatively to city school zones like Winnipeg or Steinbach or Winkler?
Well, so I don't have the rural urban breakdown specifically. However, I imagine that a lot of the things that we're seeing in these high congestion areas is translatable across the province. I mean, I grew up in Steinbach, so little plug, go Sabres. So I've seen this sort of stuff growing up as well. Though I will say that there's also something else. Just on behalf of CAA, we have run our school safety patrol program. We're coming up to about 90 years at this point. And of course, there will be thousands of school safety patrollers who will be descending upon school zones across the province. So we're also reminding folks to be mindful of those bright lime green vests as our little youngsters help their peers cross the road safely and demonstrate leadership skills in their communities. Of course, we're very, very proud of them. So we're also reminding motorists to be aware of our patrollers out there on the road.
Fantastic reminders and some great tips. Thank you so much, Avald, for taking the time today.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for having me.